Welcome to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, and my co-hosts, Anthony Rivardo and Mike Iarapino. Give us a follow on Twitter if you haven't already, Alex Wilson ESM, Anthony_Rivardo, and Mike_NYY. Also, make sure to smash that subscribe button on YouTube and leave us a review on iTunes. We want to hear from you, and we're going to have a lot of great content coming out in the future, and we want you guys all to be here for it and answering your questions and doing mailbags. This is going to be super interactive, and we have three great guys, wanting to be involved. So straight off the bat, today's news, Alec Ogeltree, Kareem Martin being cut. Mike, what do you think about Alec Ogeltree being cut? I know, he's a little bit lackluster on defense the past 2 years after being traded from the Rams. And now, we're looking at a situation where the cap is rising and, the Giants have a lot of space to make moves and maneuver in the free agency.
Yeah, it absolutely had to be done, and I think we all expected this. So I think they save around $8 million, which is fantastic, and that's definitely not a player worth $8 million at this point. So, once again, just like Nate Solder, I don't entirely blame Gettleman for making that trade. Of course, it doesn't look good, but the Giants definitely had a hole at inside linebacker. He tried to fill it with a fourth-round pick, and I think a fifth-round pick was the trade for, fifth-round pick for the next year. Mm-hmm. So he tried. It wasn't good. Ogeltree had a very down 2017 year, and that was definitely some red flags, but Gettleman thought it was a fluke and went all in, and unfortunately did not pay off. But now we're not paying him for next year, and that's great news, obviously.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, cutting him and Kareem Martin frees over $13 million in cap space for the Giants. Yep. That right there might cover Leonard Williams' contract extension if that's what they decide to do with it. So, I mean, that's a lot of money. Those are two players that were not living up to their contracts. They were performing very poorly. I mean, I know week after week I was always frustrated without Ogeltree. Occasionally he'd make a pretty flashy highlight interception, but overall it was a lot of missed tackles, missed assignments, and blown coverages. So I'm pretty happy to see him go. Like you said, Mike, I don't blame him. I don't blame Gettleman for necessarily making the trade. I just think with that contract, maybe he should have thought twice about it before making it.
I agree. And just looking at Alec Ogletree's stats right now, he had a 15.8% missed tackle rate. That's crazy high. Like, this guy literally was missing tackles 15, almost 16% of the time. That just kind of, I know Joe Judge was like, we're going to be evaluating players. Everybody has a clean slate. Day after he says that, Alec Ogletree's off the team. So that should tell you he's already done his homework. He knows what he's doing, and he's evaluating these players correctly. And just to take a look, I honestly forgot Kareem Martin was on the team for like most of the last 2 years. Like his name would come up and I'd be like, who is this guy? And then I'd realize, we're paying him I think we're saving like $5 million from cutting him this year, which is like exponential value. And like you said, and like they can allocate that money towards Leonard Williams. A $13 million contract's pretty nice. And I think, considering his run stopping abilities and his limited pass rush, but he had a nice quarterback hit rate last year. I think it could be super valuable, especially if they get him for under $15 million, which is my big thing here. Mike, do you think that he's worth anywhere near $15 million?
Probably not. I mean, I wanted to comment on one thing, actually. So it's a good thing Joe Judge actually noticed that Alec Ogletree was not good. So, I mean, if you went back and watched the tape and said, this guy's my inside linebacker next year, I would definitely be concerned. But, yes. I mean, $15 million, I mean, yes, it's a bit too much for my blood still. I'm definitely not going to change my stance on that. So, it is what it is. So.
I agree. I mean, I think Gettleman's going to give Leonard Williams what he wants. I know that at the Combine press conference yesterday, he did discuss that negotiations have begun, but they haven't really gotten anywhere. He said that they're considering using the franchise tag, and that can lead to a whole array of issues because if they franchise tag him as a defensive tackle versus a defensive end, it could cause a conflict because defensive ends make more money on the franchise tag. So it might get messy. Either way, the franchise tag, I believe, is around $13 million. So, at least there we go. Now we can pay for it and not worry about the $60 million that we had initially. But also Kareem Martin, that did free up $5 million, like you said, 4.75, and that man only played in 5 games. So
that's unbelievable.
This past season, yep. So we were paying him $1 million per game, which is
wasn't noticeable, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, he doesn't look like like I said, I don't even remember him being on the team. And that 5 games he played was seriously insignificant considering how terrible the Giants were anyway. But I think, Williams is an interesting guy. Him getting 13 million makes sense to me. Nowhere, I don't think he's worth 15. 13 seems to be like a good round number for me. But just looking at the the franchise tag for a defensive tackle would be about $13 million. So, or I think it's for the franchise tag. I know the transition tag is also about the same. Obviously, other teams are able to match that, and then the Giants have the first option to counter. So that's essentially what the transaction tag would mean. But the Giants, I mean, any player is not going to want to be franchise tagged essentially because they want the multi-year, they want the guarantees, and Williams being going into his 5th year, I think he's sitting here like I need a multi-year deal, and if the Giants franchise tag him, he might pull one of those like I'm just going to wait until August to show up to training camp. So I get it. It makes sense. But just, going beyond that into more cuts, I think the Giants in the next few days, probably in the next 2 days, I see like kind of a little bit of a trend here that they will probably cut Rhett Ellison and Antoine Bethea. I think, that would be obvious moves, just like the Martin and Ogeltree. This was pretty clear. Their dead cap was, really low, and making sure that they were off the team and saving that money makes a lot of sense. Do you think Ellison, Mike, and Bethea are worth cutting? I know Bethea actually had decent numbers despite him being absolutely terrible in coverage, but do you think it's worth cutting him?
Yeah, I mean, look at Bethea's stats. He got a lot of tackles, but that says a lot about your defense being bad. So, I mean, if you watch every Giants game, you know that he did not really have a good year. But, yeah, those are 2 guys I really expected to be cut. I guess we'll talk about surprise cuts later. But those 2 definitely, I think Ellison, maybe they try to restructure something because I do think at least the Giants' last coaching staff liked Ellison. I personally like him as well. I think he's a pretty good blocker, and he's just, does what he can in the receiving game. He's not terrible. So I'd keep him around for the right price. I know the Giants do have 2 other tight ends if Evan Ingram's healthy. But yeah, I mean, cutting those guys is probably the right move, and I would not blame them for that. So, I can definitely live without Bethea and even Rhett Ellison if they have to move on from him.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should move on from both of them. I think Rhett Ellison's purpose is going to be served just fine by Caden Smith. I think Caden Smith is a younger option who does what Ellison does just as well, if not better. Yep. So why pay the man $4 or $5 million, whatever it is? And then Antoine Bethea, again, I think he was very bad this past year. He's 35 years old. There's no reason to keep this old dinosaur on the field for us. I mean, it's time to get younger. We've got Julian Love. He missed out on a lot of snaps this last season because we were playing Antoine Bethea instead, and Julian Love was really impressive when he did get the chance to play. So I say you stick with Love, or if you sign somebody else. Bethea is not the answer. I mean, he's clearly on his last leg. Just I think it's time to move on from that, and maybe he should personally consider retirement after this because he didn't look like he was still a pro player this past season. I didn't think, at least.
Anthony, I never thought you'd go for someone's neck like that. Absolutely, he should just retire. The guy is a dinosaur, man. You just like torched this guy's entire life. But I do agree. I mean, the reality is he had 1 interception last year, right? He's playing free safety. He had 1 interception. The interception was against Dak Prescott, and he was within 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. So, take that as you will. We know that Antoine Bethea racked up a lot of tackles, mainly because the linebackers could not, cover up the run game. So he was moving up a lot into the, closer to the line of scrimmage. But I think Bethea has to be cut. They're going to save $2.7 million on him. It's a no-brainer in my opinion. Take that money, allocate it towards Devin McCourty or some, talented free safety because they're really scarce in the NFL. And I know DeAndre Baker also said Bethea helped him a lot in the film room and it was really good with him as a mentor, but it's just not worth it anymore. Like Joe Judge said, like the coaches are there to coach. The players are not supposed to be coaching other players. That is not their job. I want Bethea and whoever else is on the team to be focused on being the best version of themselves and not worrying about coaching younger players, because if the coaches aren't doing that successfully, clearly the players should not be, that shouldn't be their job to compensate for their lack of coaching ability. So that's my opinion. But what do you guys think about a surprise cut? I know I was looking at it before, and it was really hard to find anybody because they're so young. The Giants have such a young team. Finding a player, an older player on a multi-year deal is really hard. Like, I don't know if you guys saw anybody that you thought might be worth cutting. But let's start with Mike. Did you spot anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this. I mean, they would not save a lot of money with this move whatsoever, but if you watch the final 4 games or so of the year after the Giants brought on Javorius Allen, they
Yep.
started having Wayne Gallman inactive. So I'm not sure. I mean, it obviously depends on what the new coaches want, but Wayne Gallman might be a guy that they move on from. I know it's only going to save them like $700,000, but at the same time, they might have a different RB2 next year. So some Giants fans want to bring Gallman back. I personally think he's all right. He's nothing special, but he might be a guy that is a surprise cut. Of course, there's other options like Golden Tate, Nate Solder, but that wouldn't really save you too much money, and they probably wouldn't be the best for the team if they were cut because they might be some valuable players for this team next year if they, if they're playing healthy, obviously.
Right, right, right. And I think, like you said, with Wayne Gallman, it was really weird what happened there. Like they just
Yeah.
completely cut him out of the game. Like Pat Shermer was like, "Yeah, I just didn't feel like playing him anymore." And they signed Javorius Allen. I'm like Wayne Gallman seems like a pretty nice guy, unless he like cursed out his mom or something. Why else would he be cut? Like just be like dropped to the third string guy. Like he was putting up like decent numbers. He's a running back due behind Saquon Barkley. You never expect him to get any playing time. Like what's the point in not just giving him a shot? And he runs hard. He's from Clemson. He knows how to play against talented
He did
defenders.
well in his one
Like him.
star against the Redskins. He killed it, honestly. He was good. But
I don't understand him. And what do you think about this nonsense?
I mean, I feel bad for Wayne Gallman because he was someone that I thought had a lot of potential before we even drafted Saquon Barkley, like starter potential. And then obviously he was like, okay, you're the second running back behind Saquon, and then he got pushed all the way down to third running back. So it really sucks to see he's really fallen from grace, and it's been disappointing to watch. But he also hasn't been overly impressive when he's on the field either. And I know for a running back, a lot of the times they have to get into a rhythm, so maybe that's not really his fault. Plus, we have a bad offensive line. I think he's one of those players that you got to keep around. I don't think you can cut him. You keep him around. He fights for a roster position in training camp, and if he's that like unimpressive, then I think you consider cutting him and finding someone else to fill that role. But I think you got to give him a chance to at least prove himself. The clean slate, like Joe Judge talked about, see if he can earn a spot on the roster. If not, then yeah, move on.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I mean, as for Javorius Allen, I don't even know if they'll really keep him around, if it's worth it. But I think, you might be right. Wayne Gallman could be a surprise cut. Mine was Golden Tate. And, I just kind of took a flyer on this one because, like I said before, their Giants are so young. They don't have that many guys with like really low dead cap hits besides the guys they just cut in Kareem Martin, Ogeltree, and the expected Buffet and Ellison. So Golden Tate was the guy I picked, and it saves $30 million against the cap, which they can allocate elsewhere. They already have Sterling Shepard, and I feel like they play a similar role. They're both, those slot guys that can play on the outside. And with Darius Slayton kind of accepting a bigger role and really coming into himself in his rookie year, like they don't really need Golden Tate to be there. It might just be too many similar styles of play in the wide receivers with Tate and Shepard. However, I am really concerned about Sterling Shepard's concussions. I don't know if you guys are thinking the same way I am, but this guy had 2 concussions last year. Like if he gets another one or two next year, he might have to retire. Like
definitely.
a player getting concussions like that, and especially with being cognizant of CTE these days and all the tests they're doing and the research that's coming out, I think it's really scary for him to go through this, especially 2 concussions within like a few months of each other. Like he was out for weeks. If you remember the second one, he was out for weeks. They were like, he's going to be back next week. And like 3 weeks later, they were still like, oh, yeah, like he's still seeing concussion symptoms. It happened again and again and again. And it's really scary for me to think about, him having to suffer that fate, especially at this point in his career. He's so young, just signed a multi-year deal. It's really sad, but I guess that would be the justification to not cut Tate. Again, his cap hit would be 10.5 million. And if his dead cap is 7.5, so he'd only save 3 million from cutting him anyway. I think they'll probably end up just keeping him. But I wouldn't be surprised. His guarantees are all voided from him having the PED suspension earlier on in the year. But this is an interesting one. Do you guys think that Tate could be cut?
I mean, it wouldn't really make sense financially, as you said. I mean, they say
Yeah.
what, $3 million basically. This is a Gettleman signing. If they had a new GM, I could see them saying, oh, well, let's bring in a new wide receiver and cut this old guy and try to get someone younger. But it's still the same GM, and I just don't see him giving up on Tate after 1 year. And he wasn't that bad either. I mean, he did come back from the suspension,
Right.
did have some nice big splash plays for us. You think of the Patriots game, he had a
Mhm.
big catch against the Bears. I mean, they lost that game, but still had some really nice moments and showed he still has some left in the tank. And if he played a full 16 games, his numbers weren't really dropping off. He still would have put up the same production he's been doing for the past 5 years or so. I mean, did have that one giant year in Detroit where he had, I think, like 1,200 yards or so, but that's one outlier. I mean, outside of that, he's around 80 to 100 catches, gives you 800 yards, a lot of missed tackles, and honestly had a lot of touchdowns last year. I think he had around 6, right? So, I mean, that's a good year for Golden Tate, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it makes much sense either, but he doesn't really, like you mentioned, that's two slot receivers that we have starting, and one of them has to play outside most of the time. It's not really a nice fit in the offense. So if they do sign somebody, like say they land Amari Cooper in free agency, or if they decide to draft somebody like Brandon Ayuk in the third round and get a speedster over top, somebody like that, then I think you move on from Golden Tate. But I don't think you're in any rush to do it because you're not saving a ton of money. But if he's not fitting in your offense anymore because you've kind of replaced him, then there's no point in keeping him around for the extra millions that you're going to spend on him. And maybe you can even trade him and get like a really late round pick in return. You never know. So I'd say you keep him because I do think he was very productive last year and he's still a solid contributor. But if you do find someone who's better to replace him, maybe younger, then I think you move on and maybe see if you can get a pick in return for him.
Yeah, and just to hit again on having two wide receivers that kind of play the same position with Tate and Shepard, they could look to just get a big body guy. I know Jason Garrett's really into having a big red zone target, and I know Evan Ingram, they want him to be that guy, but can we trust him to be that guy? Not really. He had surgery, I think, like 2 months ago, and the guy's still wearing a boot, like traveling to Brazil. So that's a little concerning to me that he's still wearing a boot after 2 months of surgery, after it, sorry. And that's kind of a little bit of a weary thing to think about. But I think, a guy like Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame, I know I mentioned him on the last episode. This guy is huge. He's like 6'7", like 200.
I got a hot take about him.
You do? Ooh, I want to hear it.
Move him to tight end.
Honestly,
put on 10 more pounds, and honestly, it could work.
It could work. He's a big guy. He's not the fastest guy. He's like a 4'6" speed wide receiver, so he's not going to blow anyone away. But the guy has he's a huge frame. Like he's like a bald eagle running down the middle of the field. So it's pretty impressive to see him, play. If you haven't checked his highlights out, go do it. Like the guy is incredibly talented. He's just not the fastest one, but that kind of, suggests that he could be a good option at tight end. I know he probably doesn't want to do that, but he's huge. The guy's ripped too. So, putting him there and seeing what he could do, he kind of reminds me of like a Jimmy Graham type of style guy, actually, with his size. I don't know. Like, it's not a bad idea, but do you think
he reminded me of Vincent Jackson, if you remember him from the Chargers and the Buccaneers, big receiver. Kind of reminded me of him in a way.
Yeah. Who did he match up? Like, he was like 1-2. Who was the other guy? Was it Deshaun Jackson?
Well, Mike Evans was there. I guess
Deshaun.
I think Jackson might have been after him, but I know Mike Evans played with him. So yeah.
Jackson, my God, I remember he was so good. I draft him in fantasy football sometimes, or play with him in Madden, and then he just disappeared. Where did he go?
Yeah, he got hurt one year. I think he, had 1,000 yards and had like 400, and then fell off, and then retirement. That's really it.
Literally, what happened to the cornerback? There was a really good cornerback on the Buccaneers too. It's like the V.
Not Vontae, not Vontae Davis, right? Or no?
No. It's not Vontae Davis on.
Vernon Hargraves.
Oh, not him. Although he did play better. He played better. Who's he with now? Saints? No.
No.
Oh, was it
Texans.
Houston? It's Houston. I gotta figure out this guy's name. I don't know. Well, in the meantime, I kind of want to jump over to some of the quotes that Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman had before, yesterday at the NFL Combine. So the first big one that everyone's talking about is we are open for business. And we all know what that means. With the 4th overall pick, Dave Gettleman, never wanting to trade back, is now open for business. I think it's a load of shit, personally. But, there's so much stuff going on in the top 4 picks right now, because the Giants have a really interesting situation brewing, because they have, Detroit at number 3 and Washington at number 2. And what's his name? Ron Rivera today was like, we're not committed to Dwayne Haskins. He was like, we're evaluating quarterbacks. And if Joe Burrow falls into our laps, we are going to give him the old Josh Rosen treatment. Well, Haskins the Josh Rosen treatment, and send him off to a terrible team to crash and burn. But basically, Washington's open for a quarterback. Detroit could be with Matthew Stafford constantly getting injured. The Giants, this could be a very interesting draft. I don't know. Are you guys seeing this? Like, have you guys seeing? I think everything that we predict or everything I've imagined could be completely wrong at this point because everyone seems to be kind of in on a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you've predicted might be completely wrong, but for me, the guy who said quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, 3, and then Chase Young at 4, everyone thinks I'm crazy for saying that, but day by day, it sounds more and more likely, especially now that the Redskins are looking at quarterbacks. And even if they're not planning on drafting one, there's a pretty good chance that they're doing this just to create some traction on trade talks and get someone to trade up to number 2 so that they can get their king's ransom at that spot. And then if that happens, maybe someone wants to jump up to 3, quarterbacks 1, 2, 3, Giants get Chase Young at number 4, and then I sound like an evil genius since I've been saying this since December.
An evil genius, he says.
I personally think the Redskins still take Chase Young. I don't know how you pass up on that, honestly. I mean, they could get a quarterback next year. Maybe they go all in on sucking again next year, but like maybe they like Tua. I really don't know. I mean, it would just be surprising. Like Chase Young is just such a sure thing type prospect, and like for some reason, edge rushers that produce highly in college just have like a high probability rate of being good in the NFL as well. So I feel like that's a pretty safe pick. And then, you saw what Nick Bosa did for the 49ers last year and even his brother for the Chargers and stuff like that. So there's a lot of good edge rushers that come to a defense and just change the whole complexity of it. And the Redskins defense isn't too bad if they're healthy. So, I mean, I feel like maybe you get Chase Young, work on your defense this year. Maybe they go for the quarterback in 2021, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But before I dive into what I have to say, Alteron Werner. Remember him?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I don't know why. Like he sounds like he's from Star Wars or something. No, but I agree. Chase Young, if he falls to the Giants like take him, no questions asked.
Don't trade back there.
No. You take that because think about this. You have Chase Young as your one of your defensive ends or whatever outside linebackers, and then you can re-sign Marcus Golden. Having Marcus Golden as your number 1, he had 10 sacks, right? 10 sacks, and a lot of them were just covered sacks or just motor sacks. Just the quarterback was trapped in the pocket, and he cleaned up, which is not a bad thing. You have to have a guy that can clean up. But having a guy like Chase Young and then Marcus Golden on the other side with let me add Dexter Lawrence. Hopefully, they'll keep Leonard Williams on a reasonable deal, and then Dalvin Tomlinson. That is an incredible defensive line. If Chase Young falls to the Giants, oh my God, I'm gonna have a party. I'm giving away a jersey of his to to somebody on Twitter. So just keep a lookout for that. If they get him, I promise you I will give away a jersey of his the second they're released because that would be the best thing for the Giants. I know I love Isaiah Simmons and I think they should trade back and gain more capital, but the guy like Chase Young changes your team. Look what Nick Bosa did for the 49ers this year. Like the guy was unstoppable. He was a rookie this year, right? I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Correct.
He was a rookie. Like that guy was incredible. I know he's a little racist, but he's pretty damn good at football.
He's great in the Super Bowl too. I mean, he didn't have the biggest impact on paper, but when you watch that game, he was beating this guy every play basically. I mean, sure he's in the back of Patrick Mahomes' mind on every drop back.
I know, exactly. And I'm looking at his stats right now, and let's see, he had 9 sacks, 25 quarterback hits. He only missed tackles on 6% of the time. That is an incredible tackle rate. To have a guy that if he gets near someone, they're not getting out of his range.
Alec Ogeltree.
If Ogeltree had 4 arms, he still wouldn't have a 6% tackle rate. We're talking about a guy that they traded. I can't believe they paid him $10 million, man. I wish they paid me $10 million. I could have at least. I mean, I'll have a 99% missed tackle rate, but I might have an interception or 2 every now.
Better effort. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give everything I have. That's what I can guarantee you. I loved it. Okay, this is one of the funniest things I remember. Last preseason, Alec Ogletree's he in his head, he's thinking I haven't had a good year. Last year was terrible. I'm gonna change my number this time and see if that's what makes the difference. I'm like, are you serious? You actually think changing your number is going to make you a better football player? Why don't you just watch some more damn film or go learn from Richard Seymour or something like Leonard Williams is doing? I don't know, anything, but changing your number is not going to get it done. I don't know.
Has that happened in sports before where a guy changes his number and then becomes better? I'm trying to think.
I know Kobe changed his number. I don't remember why Kobe changed his number. His
numbers were the same though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Same
That's true.
numbers, like, you know what I mean? He was putting up the same stats he was in 8
Exactly.
and 24. I mean, Paul George changed his numbers, but he's still Paul George. He's had a kind of off year. We're talking about basketball now, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, but that, but like Al Ogletree, his numbers actually got worse, I think. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hold on, let me see this. So his numbers from 2018, he had a 14.7% missed tackle rate. 2019 had 15.8%. He changed his number and got worse. How do you how do you even do that? Like he tried to like give himself a spark and got worse.
How
And it's
old is
complete, oh my
Ogeltree? I want
God.
to look this up. He can't be
He's
too old, right?
he's 28 years old, dude.
Yeah.
This guy, oh my God. I can't even like believe what I'm seeing. He had an 83% completion percentage against him last year.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
83%. Like the guy, like we had a blind man in the middle of our defense. Like literally a blind guy running on the middle of our defense. That's like 83%. Like talking about linebackers covering running backs or tight ends. I can't believe we had him back.
Bring me Corey Littleton, please.
Bring
That's
me
all I
Corey.
want.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. Corey Littleton, bringing him up now.
Oh, he had to be much better. There's no way he
So
was
he had
that bad.
71.8% completion percentage, I guess, so about 10% lower than Ogletree. But his missed tackle rate, oh my God. Dude, blowing minds, Mike. You gotta stop blowing my mind right now because he has a 3.6% missed tackle rate compared to
Ooh.
Ogletree's 15.8%.
Ooh. I like that.
Did he have no hands? Like, I can't. I don't know how to describe this. He also has never missed. He's never missed a game.
No. I like that about him too.
16 games in the past 4 years. That's incredible.
What about Joe Schobert from the Browns? He's a pretty good player too. 133 tackles last year, 69% completion rate, 10% missed tackle rate. That's also an improvement. He's a good player.
Yeah, no, he's good too. I think he'll be a little bit cheaper too. He has some experience at middle linebacker. I'm really intrigued to see Ryan Connolly though. Like, where does he fit into this whole plan? Because I know coming off a torn ACL is not easy, and he probably will have some rust, and he still is developing. Like he barely played any football last year. So what do you see? Where do you guys see him fitting into this team now? Going into 2020. Do you think that he's a starter, or are they just gonna fill the role and hope that Connolly beats whoever it is out come the regular season?
I think it depends where he is with his injury. If he's healthy, I mean, we have a lot of holes on the roster. I doubt we're going to fill all of them. So if he's healthy, he's probably going to start. If not, they'll probably have somebody there until he gets healthy. But speaking of missed tackle rate, in the 4 games that Ryan Connolly played, he didn't miss a single tackle.
No way.
0%, man.
That's really impressive. I mean, I know he's one of those guys that's super instinctual. Like he, at Wisconsin, if you watch his highlights or his film, he just shoots the gap so well. Like watching him play, he's such an athlete, an instinctual athlete, and he just slithers his way through offensive lines. Like I don't know how he does it, but I saw it last year a few times too. I know he missed one tackle. I think it was against Washington early on in the year, but I just remember how impressed I was seeing him burst through the line and his quality against the run. And I think he can be really good in that way and just being unpredictable in Patrick Graham's defense. I think they're going to be playing more of a 3-4 mostly, but Connolly is that guy. He's a sleeper. I think he could be a starter pretty easily. I mean, he beat out Ogletree in like 30 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, like I would be fine with him as a number 2 inside linebacker. I don't know if I want to go into him, being a number 1 coming off an injury sophomore year. But back to him, I mean, watching him in college, you can definitely tell he had it like up here, like mentally. He definitely was very sharp and like had the instincts and the football IQ and all that type of stuff. But I wasn't sure, honestly, if he wasn't, if his body was right or if he's going to be like athletic enough to be a top tier linebacker in the NFL. We're still not sure of it, but seeing what he did in 3.5, 4 games was just tremendous. And if he can build off of that and come back healthy, as we said before, then we could have a great option inside linebacker, hopefully a number 2. But if he's number 1 and he improves even more, then I can live with that.
Yeah, and one thing about Ryan Connolly is he was a great player at the NFL Combine last year, and He ran a 4.66 40-yard dash, and I don't have the number right now, but I'm looking for it. But I know that he ran a like very impressive 10-yard split, which definitely showed up on the tape, like you were talking about, Alex, when he was shooting the gaps. And I know Pro Football Focus, before he got drafted, they pointed that out, and they said this might be why he projects well at the NFL level, because he shoots the gaps so well and he gets back there so fast with that 10-yard split. And week after week, we saw that. We saw him put that into effect. So that was a pretty cool little stat that I saw.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at Joe Schobert again right now. And he only missed 3 games in the last 4 years as well. So he's really talented. 144 tackles in 2017. He has 3 consecutive years with over 100 combined tackles. And he also gets sacks. He had 2 sacks last year, 3 sacks 2018, 3 sacks 2017. I mean, he's pretty good overall. They have him listed as Joe the Show. I don't know if I can call him that if he comes to the Giants, though.
It works, but
Or Joebert.
So here's the
I like
Ryan
Joe.
Connolly stat. 1.54 second 10-yard split recorded at the scouting combine, ranks 3rd among participating off-ball linebackers that weighed in at 240 plus pounds since 2010.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I'm still looking at Joe Sherbert's face right now. It looks like he could be in a spelling bee. Like Joebert in the spelling bee. Like, if you look at his face, he doesn't look like an NFL player at all. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I noticed that. I did the linebacker video last week, and he kind of didn't have the face I expect him to have, honestly. It was kind of funny.
He's probably, like, really mean or something. Like,
yeah.
Just, like, super aggressive. Like, one of those guys that walks into the room and you're just like, dude, relax. It's not that big. But
when I read up on him and watched his film from last year, like, you can tell he definitely has good instincts, and he's probably a little bit more athletic than Conley is. So I think in that video I said it could be like a Ryan Conley 2.0, but maybe even a little better. So I would definitely be down for Schobert. It just depends how much money, obviously. I mean, if they pay him $10-11 million per year, I think that'd be phenomenal. I could definitely live with that. He's still 26 years old, I believe, maybe 27 at the oldest. So I would definitely live with that. Much better at coverage than Alec Ogletree is. So, I mean, definitely an improvement there.
Definitely. I mean, having Schobert in the middle of the field would be good for me. I don't know if I am completely sold on the idea of having Schobert and Ryan Connolly as the starters. Schobert's good, but he's not like a premier linebacker. And the Giants really need someone to hold down the middle of the field, which is why Isaiah Simmons, I saw him like racing Travis Etienne the other day. Did you guys see that? Travis Etienne's one of the best college running backs currently. And he matched him like yard for yard, like on a 50-yard dash or 40-yard dash. I think it was a 40-yard dash, like neck and neck. To see a linebacker doing that with a running back, you don't see that very often, especially one of the best running backs in college football. So just note that, how fast this guy is and how athletic he is. A guy like Simmons, like, I'm so enamored by him. And if Chase Young doesn't fall to the Giants, I might even just be like, screw it, take Isaiah Simmons and walk away happy, because a guy like that comes around, very rarely. And even Devin White last year and Devin Bush, like, they were really, really, really talented, but they're linebackers. They're like sturdy linebackers. Isaiah Simmons can play in the slot. He can drop back in coverage. Like, he's one of those guys that can do it all. And I'm really intrigued by him. But, back to some of the quotes that we saw yesterday, just to wrap things up. We have a few minutes. So one of the things that Judge said, the only priority is to bring in good football players. We're not recreating any other program we've been a part of. So that was very, very relevant to everybody saying, oh, Judge is going to bring to New York things he learned from Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. Of course he will. And he wants to make everybody aware that he's establishing his own plan and not building around what they've already established. And that's really important. He wants his own identity. So expect things to be a little bit different in some areas than they were. And it's going to be kind of like a medley of everything he's learned. But what do you guys think of Joe Judge so far? What are your impression on him, Mike? I want to start with you.
I mean, when you hear him in the press conferences and interviews, you can't help to think this is Bill Belichick. But, like, at the same time, he does have his own identity a bit. I kind of like how he's keeping everything up in the air. He's not – some people had a problem with him not naming the starting quarterback for next year. But, like, we know who it is. Like, honestly, who cares? I'm not really, like, butthurt about that like some people are. But, I kind of like his style. I mean, it's better than Pat Shurmur probably, because Shurmur gave the most dry answers. And then Ben McAdoo was condescending and talked down to everybody. So I like Judge.
The hair. Don't forget
Yeah,
the
he
hair.
seems like it seems like every time he talks, it's just like there's a purpose for it. He's not just giving like the general answer and whatnot. And I think players on this team can really get behind that, and they definitely, have a leader now in Joe Judge as compared to Shermer and McAdoo.
Hmm.
I agree. I think Joe Judge sounds very sophisticated, respectful, serious, and I think he's somebody that the players are going to respect. And I actually really like what he's doing. I like that he's not naming any of the players by name. He's staying true to his word, saying everyone has a clean slate, but then also not saying Saquon Barkley's the best running back in the league. He's not contradicting himself. He's giving everyone a clean slate, and I think that's the way you have to do it. And if you look at it from his perspective, he's new to this organization. He doesn't have any ties with any of the players on this team. He doesn't really know them. I'm sure he's made personal commitments behind closed doors, but for him being the new coach of this team that really needs to turn things around, I don't blame him if he's actually serious about like maybe keeping everything on the table. Maybe everybody's for sale at a certain price, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't have any ties with them and the team needs to turn around. They're 4-12, 5-11. Maybe they should look for a price on everybody. And I don't see why he would say no to fielding trade offers for anybody on the team at this point. He doesn't. There's nothing really for him to lose. He's brand new here.
Right. And we saw with Cliff Kingsbury last year, he did the same thing. He brought his own
Exactly.
mantra, his own mentality, kicked Josh Rosen out of there and got Kyler Murray. So, you're right. He could do whatever, he feels. And I think, Gettleman has a say, obviously, in all of this. But the reality is Joe Judge is coming in with a fresh slate as well. And he's been super vague, like very Belichick-esque in all of his interviews. But I love his, like, demeanor, like how disciplined he is with the way he speaks. He hasn't messed up. He hasn't slipped. I think I saw, I was watching him interview yesterday at the combine. He got angry. Like someone was like, why are you evaluating quarterbacks? And he was like, we're not. He's like, we're evaluating them because we need to establish the board. He's very direct with all of the answers he gives, and I really like that about him. And I like how he's going over every single player and evaluating them as if they aren't even on the team. Like he has to make sure that he grades everybody individually and, gives them a chance to prove themselves in front of him, because proving themselves in front of McAdoo or Shermer, that's the past. This is the future. The Giants are now in a position to succeed with so much draft capital, so much cap space. And that's kind of where I want to wrap up now. Do you guys have anything you guys want to say before we close up?
Are we doing the ridiculous Tom Brady stuff or no?
We can. Anthony,
I have nothing to say about it. I don't think it's happening. He's going back to New England.
Okay, I mean, I don't
give Anthony a shot, man. A chance.
I don't think it's happening either. I think he's going back to New England. And I'll clarify once again, because I know I said this on a previous episode. I believe in Daniel Jones. That's our quarterback the next 15 years. He's winning 15 Super Bowls for us, okay? That's the man. I love him. I believe in him. I drove all the way to Miami to watch him throw hacky sacks in the corner.
That's true news.
Yeah. So I believe in the guy. But I will say, Joe Judge, everybody's got a clean slate. He doesn't have any ties to these guys. He does have somewhat of a tie to Tom Brady, and this is the third or fourth time that we've seen rumors, all from 3-4 different sources, bring up that the Giants and Tom Brady are linked for some reason. It's very strange. No one knows why, but hear me out. If they were truly linked, if they are truly considering uniting in New York, they could do that. They could sign a contract. Tom Brady's a quarterback. We do hold the 4th overall pick. That could be Tua Tagovailoa. Daniel Jones could turn into the 6th overall pick, and that could be Isaiah Simmons. And it's kind of hard to hate on something like that. And that's just why that's way too risky to try and pull off. But if you're Joe Judge, that's why you leave everything on the table. And that's why you don't make any commitments. Because if you make some commitments and then you turn around and do that, that's how you get the backlash that Cliff Kingsbury got. Because he said Josh Rosen's our guy. And then he kind of looked like a dick for trading Josh Rosen after saying that. So I don't blame Joe Judge. I think he's going about it the right way. Leave everything on the table, because some might consider the scenario that I just laid out as an improvement. I might not. I think it's too risky. And like I said, I believe in Daniel Jones, but it's just a possibility and a whole string of possibilities that Joe Judge might be weighing on the scale and saying, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that. Plenty of time to think about it. So that's all. Don't kill me in the comments. I love Daniel Jones.
And I think everybody's going to hate Joe Judge because he doesn't say anything valuable. Like, I'll love him as a coach because he's going to win games for us, hopefully. But just like Belichick, like the media is gonna be just sitting there like, what are we supposed to write about? What are we supposed to talk about with this guy? Like, don't be surprised with these type of stories coming up. You never know what could happen, like Kyler Murray or anything really. But don't be surprised if like wild stories are coming up about other players too, because the media is going to be trying to conjure up things to talk about because Joe Judge isn't giving them an ounce, and I love it. I love every damn second of it. So, with that being said, thank you for listening to Fireside Giants and tuning in with us. And we hope to continue making this enjoyable for you. Check out our YouTube channel if you haven't already and subscribe. We're killing it over there, and we're only getting bigger and better. So we hope to get you guys more involved. We'll do some more mailbags and hopefully get some really cool people on here in the future. So thank you to Mike and Anthony for being here once again, and peace out.